I got a question from the illustrious activist extraordinaire Joey Carbstrong. I mentioned that in some of my earlier videos I dealt with this issue of personal purity, consciously and unconsciously shaping the way people approach veganism, the way they preach veganism, the way they organize and engage in vegan activism, and that in the past I'd made videos criticizing this. When he asked me where the videos were or what the title of the video was, I couldn't find it. So I got over 740 videos on this channel. I actually asked one of my fans, I sent an email to one of my supporters on Patreon asking, do you remember where I talked about this? He may get back to me, he may not, but you know, that's when it's time to make a new video on a topic, even if you think maybe it came up in a podcast, maybe it came up in a conversation, maybe it came up between minutes 18 and 32 in a 2-hour-long video, I don't know, but we're talking about it now. This can be a relatively succinct and to the point video. I'm here with my girlfriend Melissa who can jump in at any time. You're interesting because you've never had this problem. You approached veganism in terms of ecology first and foremost, and you kind of weaned yourself off a recycling and don't waste electricity model of veganism into activist-based veganism.
Yep.
So that's totally different from people who approached it in a spiritual way. And it's, consciously and unconsciously, some people come into veganism and they're not aware. I mean, they may just have a background in Sunday school. They may have a background in mainstream Christianity and bring that into veganism. They may have a background in mainstream yoga, watered down Hinduism for white people, and bring that into. They're bringing in a lot of different presuppositions that may come in unexamined into how they think about veganism, how they put it into practice, how do they try to either create a vegan movement on a small scale or a vegan world on a large scale, or manage their own non-vegan family and all these other challenges. The pursuit of personal purity we encounter first and foremost through the refusal to buy things. The boycott and the boycott mentality are a huge part of veganism, and it's really easy for people to just take the boycott of meat and dairy and then extend it to more and more things.
Right.
Well, at the same time, the logic of purity is kind of internally extending further and further through the refusal to be morally complicit in purchasing or participating in any of these things or activities that would, in a sense, taint your soul, taint your body, taint who you are. So, I mean, inevitably, of course, veganism involves the refusal to buy things. I'm not criticizing that in this video. However, it's very easy for people to, in an unexamined way, slip into saying, okay, I don't just refuse to buy dairy milk, I also refuse to buy palm oil. Well, is there really a criterion that separates palm oil and palm oil plantations from rubber and rubber plantations in exactly the same climate, impacting exactly the same animals, including orangutans and various tropical birds and what have you? If you cut down the forest to grow rubber, including latex rubber, how is that different from cutting down the forest to grow palm oil? Either palm oil is vegan or rubber likewise either is or isn't vegan by the same criteria, right? And I think there are some people, even if it's only a few watching this video, who would say, yeah, they also refuse to buy rubber. They refuse to buy car tires and they refuse to buy condoms because they also regard rubber as immoral. In the same way, of course, some people refuse to buy diamonds. Obviously, in a sense, diamonds are vegan. In a sense, rubber is vegan. In a sense, palm oil is vegan. But they're extending the same logic of the boycott mentality, of the refusal to buy things, outward further and further. And there's the logic of their own personal purity, of them remaining untouched by the type of moral compromise that is involved in mining diamonds, farming and producing rubber, or producing palm oil out of, starting off with a forest, we're presuming, and clear cutting the forest to grow palm oil, and then the farming process thereafter. All the fruits and vegetables we buy are produced through, firstly, the destruction of natural habitat, and then, constantly maintaining a vigil where you kill potential and actual vermin, animals that would come in and eat whatever it is you're growing. So on durian farms, they do shoot monkeys. Here in the tropics, here in South, where we live here in the tropics. So, if you have a durian farm here and monkeys come over the fence and come in and try to eat your crops, durian farmers have to shoot monkeys. More often, feral pigs, get into all fruit farms, but including, these tropical, and they shoot feral pigs. So fruit farming, in that sense, directly, they shoot large mammals, of course, insects, rodents. When you're talking about, I mentioned this a million times. I have a video called Wheat Kills. And it's like, well, look, wheat farming, don't kid yourself. People kill groundhogs and those kinds of mammals to produce it, right? So my point is here, in an unexamined sense, some people may present that as a purely political and ethical stance, that they were extending their boycott further and further. They may refuse to buy a cell phone because of the ethics of how the cell phone is manufactured. Understandable, but nothing to do with veganism. They refuse to buy one thing after another, extending this up further and further. What they may not present overtly is that this is at the same time extending the culture of personal purity, where I am the kind of person who would never own blank. I'm the kind of person who would never compromise in ways X, Y, and Z. Now, you can read many books. I've reviewed a couple of books that take this more starkly puritanical and spiritual view. There are some vegans for whom they're not in the closet about it. They really do present this in religious clothing as a belief in their own personal purity. I think maybe it's more difficult and psychologically disturbing. I mean, another example, I have spoken, this is years ago, I have debated with a vegan who said that she opposed all pornography because she regarded men exploiting women in pornography, this was her reasoning, as completely equivalent to human beings exploiting cows in the production of milk. Now, as a bizarrely sexist statement in its way, but this is actually how I challenged her. This is how I replied to her. I said, "Oh, what about gay pornography, where it's two men voluntarily filming themselves having sex? So how is that equivalent to?" And she was stumped. She had taken the logic of veganism. She extended the logic of the boycott mentality. And at the same time, I think there was a real sense of personal purity there, because I saw her own writing that, she was too pure to ever watch pornography or something. And she had extended it several steps from rational into irrational. And also, I mean, it is actually kind of philosophically profoundly disturbing. In what sense is this the same as a dairy cow being held in a steel cage on a concrete floor, in a shed where they never see the sky, and living its whole life, producing milk for human consumption? It's a really bizarre, this is the kind of, So, but look, I'm saying honestly, dealing with people face to face, fellow activists, fellow vegans, people with good intentions, they do, it's a kind of allegorical reasoning. They take one principle that makes sense, the core ideas of veganism, and then they kind of look at other ethical, political situations as allegories for one another. You know what I'm saying? They construe a kind of parallelism between them. And then before you know it, you can't wear condoms, you can't use rubber tires, you can't cook with palm oil, and you can't watch pornography. You can't even film yourself. You can't even film yourself and produce. You can't even make your own pornography. Yeah, you can't use wooden furniture. Yeah, right. Good one. Yeah. So just sit on the floor. That's for your own. And again, see, this is the thing, though.
On the floor of your house, which is obviously going to be made with materials that are problematic. I mean, what are you gonna do? Live in a mud hut?
Well, you can. You can become a Buddhist monk and live in a cave. I've met Buddhist monks who live in caves. That really exists. Okay, that's an option.
So
that's an option for you. But this is how I challenge people. I think some people, they would present that. They'd say, yeah, don't buy wooden furniture. Wooden furniture cuts down the forest and destroys habitat and kills animals. But would they argue that? Would they reason it in terms of personal purity? Would they say, I'm too pure to sit on a wooden chair, therefore I'm going to sit on the floor? Or would they present that to you as if the refusal to buy wooden furniture really is a boycott, really is impacting the outside world, as if, quote, I am saving animals' lives, close quote? I think the latter is a delusion for the former. People think they're saving animals' lives, whether by refusing to buy palm oil or even by refusing to buy meat, and they're not. So that's going to come up again in a future video where I deal further with Tobias Leonhardt's book. It is a delusion. In a capitalist society, if you and I refuse to buy meat, actually the impact is that we make meat cheaper for meat eaters. We simply lower the price. That's fundamental principles of supply and demand. A boycott of meat does not save animals' lives. It actually makes meat cheaper for the people who continue to eat meat, and that is a profound and important issue within vegan dogmatics. It's an issue within Buddhist dogmatics too, though. We've been talking a lot about Buddhist ethics. If you want to save animals' lives, you can climb a tree and get a cat out of a tree. That's saving an animal's life. But actually, simply by boycotting meat, simply by refusing to buy meat yourself, even in our thousands as vegans, we don't save animals' lives. But I would say the justification of saving animals' lives, of not cutting down the trees to make the wood, you're kidding yourself. It's self-deception. The reality is you think you're too pure to sit on wood. And, I got love for all the players in the game. You know what I mean? I'm not here saying that I hate vegans for thinking this way. I can sympathize. It's a natural I sympathize with that mode of thought that says, okay, I'm not going to buy meat, therefore I'm not going to buy palm oil. It really is. It is, in the true sense of it's sympathetic to me. I understand these are people trying to make the world a better place, and they're trying to become better people themselves. But becoming a better person yourself has to be linked to outcomes, doing things that make a real difference in the world, taking on responsibilities that do damage. Going to City Hall and, actually writing new legislation has none of this aura of personal purity about it, but it makes a real difference in the world, right? And by contrast, you may imagine you're making a real difference in the world and getting deeper and deeper into an ethic and an aesthetic of personal purity. I mentioned recently when you buy airplane tickets, you're killing animals. If you want to, you can refuse to ever buy airplane tickets again. That's not making a positive difference in the world. If you care about outcomes, you have to roll up your sleeves and make compromises. You have to sit on wooden chairs and buy airplane tickets to get to City Hall, to get to Parliament, to get to the Senate, to make that political difference that's going to have real outcomes in the world. If you want to be a better person and you want to have some ego about what you've accomplished, that's fine. But that can't be based on less and less. It can't be based on reducing inward the scope of what you consume, and I think expanding outward this illusion of your own personal purity. You look like I've managed to blow your mind. You'd think she'd be familiar with all that stuff, but all right. Damn. Under 15 minutes. It is what it is. Hit me up on Patreon. Hit me up on Twitter. See me when you see me.